day, dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies, welcome back to another episode of The Farm. We're sitting down with my main man, Wes. Wes, I think that one of the big things I wanted to sit down with you too as well is I feel like every time, again, I was saying that throughout some of these calls that I've been having, it's like before we even get into it, we're getting into it. You know what I'm saying? We're digging into some of the we're sharing. We had some of these conversations when you were here, and I think some of the ways of like where your mind's at and where you are in your road too as well. I think it could help so many coaches in so many different ways, and along their journey, right? And I think that's the point, right? Is we're all supposed to kind of like help each other down the road. It's like we're walking each other home, and we're helping not only helping each other out, but I think also too there's so much perspective that we can learn from each piece down the road. And I know that. I want to connect. I've been doing this series here where I'm trying to. God has put this the certain community of coaches like on my heart, and I want to connect them with my community, which I know could help them. And they're maybe a little bit further down the road, or maybe took the chances, or maybe the mindset that they have, or maybe again some of the things that they've walked through, or what season they're in, can be very powerful and meaningful. So, anyways, I really appreciate you jumping on. Why don't you kind of tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you're at, all the things, and we'll get going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Wes Phillips. I'm raised in Wichita, Kansas here out of high school, went to Wichita State, and then went to JUCO for my sophomore spring. That was before the transfer portal. So I had a hightail out of here to go to JUCO, and then I went to East Carolina my last 2 years. Had an opportunity to play indie ball for 2 years as well. That was really fun, just kind of getting experience of just pro ball in general. And it's kind of funny because baseball was not my first love when I was playing. I loved football. Like I'm a high motor guy. Like I wanted to be an athlete and juke and jive and catch and, do all those things. But it wasn't until my alma mater from my high school coach came to a Wingnuts game when I was playing Wingnuts. And he's like, dude, you got to come coach for us. I was like, man, like I feel like I'm just done with baseball. Ended up 8 years ago, coaching JV for my old high school. And dude, I just fell in love with it. Right. The leadership, having empathy for players, just understanding how hard this game is. And so really that's the one move that I made that I was unsure about, but I just did it. I was like, I have nothing else to do. Let's go coach baseball and see what happens. And after that, man, I just really fell in love with baseball again, that I never had felt before. Right. And getting that leadership role. And like I said, the game is so hard. Right. And I'm a mental guy, and I've been through a lot different ways mentally. So just being able to be there like an older brother in a way for these young gentlemen has literally changed my life, right? And that has led me into led me into training full time and just burn the boats of everything else and be like, hey, you know what? This is something that God's calling me to do, and I really feel it. So yeah, I'm here now.
Love it. No, and again, like I said, we've already had, when you were here, I mean, I remember at one point within the retreat, right? It was first off one of my favorite lines. Just like, man, I feel like I'm in a movie right now. That's like one of my favorite.
Yeah, no lie. For real. I really did, dude.
Yeah, before I go to the next point, why don't you explain that again? If you don't know what I'm talking about, is we do interviews when everybody comes out here for the retreat, and that was like one of the first things you said is like the first day. It's like, bro, I just feel like I'm in a movie right now. What was that for you that that connected?
So the thing is, again, like 3 years into coaching, I started just doing lessons, right? And then I was like a tools guy. Like I was the guy that, I see some propaganda on Instagram. I'm gonna buy something, right? Like this tool. And then I saw Farm System come up, and I bought a board, and this was right after Pro Bowl. So my swing was still there, and I got on the board, and I was blown away. Like just the feels I got was just insane. So that made me start following you guys, and then started seeing everything that you're doing. And then eventually, so what happened was, this is why it was so cool to me, because I had called Taylor, right? Yeah. 2 years before the retreat, and called her and said, hey, Taylor, like I'm a huge fan of what you guys do and how you guys speak to athletes and how you get them doing different motions and everything like that. But I was like, hey, Taylor, like I would love to just come to the farm and just be a fly on the wall. Right.
Mhm.
I told her that 2 years ago before I got invited to the retreat. And so that's why it was just a full circle thing for me that I was like, this is unbelievable. I mean, I literally almost cried when I got the call and I, you know, I called my wife and my mom. I was like, dude, you are not going to believe what just happened. Like literally. And the thing is, I came to the retreat and everybody gives me a little bit of emotion from this, but I got married 2 days before I came to Vegas for the retreat. And everybody's like, dude, you're starting your marriage off this way. And like, no, my wife completely knew about it. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a once in a lifetime deal for me. And I have to go. Like, I really have to go. We didn't have a honeymoon for 3 months later, but everybody's like, you're going to Vegas by yourself. You know, you just got married 2 days ago. That's crazy. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what I'm actually doing. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm going to meet Joey and the gang.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why it was such a big moment for me, because it's full circle.
Yeah, no, love that. And I think the other part was, you know, we had some time that one day, right, where, you know, we do shadowing at the end of the retreat, right? If you guys obviously that haven't been or any things haven't looked into it. And so at the end of that, me and you, you know, we started talking, right? And we're sitting, I remember us sitting over there in the corner and, you know, start getting into some deep combos. And you're talking about, like, you know, again, you're going through these transitions, which is also so common. Again, I think that, you know, again, not only through my own journey, but also too on the other side of that, right? That there's these seasons and these transitions and all these things. And during that time, there's so much uncertainty. There's your brain's thinking in so many different directions of what you could do. And again, likewise, I've been there so many times. I've been through so many different transitions. And so we were having some of that. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring that part up too, is I know that, again, that community of coaches that I'm talking about. And if you want, again, if I could define a little bit more about this community that I feel like God has really put on my heart lately, is, again, not only coaches that are getting started, right? Because that's already a transition, right? Just getting started. But sometimes there's this overlap where there's also coaches that have got going, right? And then there's some type of transition, or there's some resistance, or there's something where it's like, man, I don't know what's coming. I don't know if this is the right move. I don't know, you know, again, I got to take these big chances. Maybe I have to go backwards so that I could potentially go forward. All these things that could happen, right? Keep the list, keep running, right? But there's, I think a lot of times those coaches, one, not only need encouragement, but also perspective from people that have been through those transitions. And also, two, maybe might be currently in a transition, right? Sometimes you need to hear from somebody in it, right? Like in the middle of the transition, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm focused on. This is my mindset right now as I'm going through some of these things. And I think that that's so powerful. And so that's where, again, I really wanted to have you on, you know, so we can talk through some of those things. And I think specifically there too as well, you know, could you kind of open that up, right? Like as you within your story, right, of making some of these things, like first off, let's just call out what you just said from you just getting married, right? You're coming out here. That already tells you, first off, like, and some people are going to say, you know, like you said, some people might give you a hard time, right, like priorities wise, but it's like, no. Like, it's also mindset wise of being like, no. You know, because it actually, and how I viewed it from you too, is like, hey, my wife, my relationship it's so important, but also too, because of that, I'm prioritizing our future. Both of our future, right? Like, I want to prioritize, and I want to get it off on a good foot. I'm not going to Vegas to party, right? Like, I'm going to Vegas to learn, to grow, to develop, to also build and learn all this perspective, so that I can also, on top of that, stack that into our lives, bring those opportunities into our lives and our future and all those things too. So why don't you kind of just open that part up a little bit too, about like where you were, why you found it so, you know, valuable, why you prioritize. Like, I get, like, everybody can hear the excitement. They can hear like, oh yeah, like he obviously wanted to be, but why was that such a priority to you? What do you felt like that it brought so much to you? Why did you see it as a once in a lifetime opportunity for you? Like, why was that?
Well, because I think the first thing is I needed answers, right? And I needed answers from the guy, right, that I've looked up to for so many years. And I just knew it'd be valuable that I could start connecting dots for athletes, because in the back of my mind, I knew that this is a challenging thing, right? In the sense of neurologically, right? Number one, like how the person learns and how I can make it make sense to them, right?
Yeah.
And I know number two, in our body, I don't want to make a fish climb up a tree when they physically cannot. You know what I mean? Like, and I felt like I was like pushing athletes in the wrong way. I'm very hypersensitive, and my biggest character trait is I'm very intuitive, right? And so like I see the context from parents, I see the context from players and how they think of results, and like, and then again, like on top of that, you're making them have different moves, but I'm like, is that right? Like, and so really, our trainer Dylan, from our pitching trainer, is the one that kind of brought attention to, joint centration and little things like that. Like I always knew how the motion and the planes of motion worked. And it's like, I knew how to just do Jedi mind tricks with kids to get them to where they're supposed to go. But like, I wanted to know under the hood stuff, right? Like I wanted to know a deeper knowledge of why, right? And so, because a lot of times we're just kind of guessing. And so now whenever I went there, I knew that I was going to get answers. I knew I was going to understand why and how people move in certain ways, and because of posture and because of all those things, and how the rib cage is set up, and all just little things like that were just so high end for me. So I just needed answers more than anything, right? Because again, I knew the grayness of it. Let's put it that way, right? But I think it was the biggest thing was I needed answers. I've been searching for that so long, and I knew I was going to get it with you guys. And especially with Taylor's talk too at the end with the mental stuff, dude, it connected so many dots in the sense of a social aspect, in the sense of their background and how they learn, and how it's funny how parents talk to kids. That's a big context for me. I listen to these parents and how they, interact with their own children, because I can kind of navigate in there too. And Taylor's the one that really opened my eyes to that. And that was a huge blessing for me, because and even in the back end, we had those times where we could just talk, in between sessions. And that was a big part for me too, was like, we're just able to talk game, talk ball. Right. And I had talked to Taylor about some people, and, she gave me some huge advice for that. So really, man, honestly, I wanted to meet you guys personally. Right. And secondly, I just wanted more defined answers for myself, so I could be a cleaner trainer. I could be a more professional trainer.
No, I love that. And I think the other thing, like you said, there as well, is I one of the things I think it's so important is that a lot of people, it's like, I was talking about this yesterday where I was talking about we obviously had 2 different retreats. And if you didn't know, Wes, I was at both of those. And so because of those, I got to experience both those retreats. And so we had Dawn on last week, but she was at the other retreat, right? The second retreat. Last year. And so it was big for her, like biomechanics. Like she really wanted to go deep in the biomechanics. This was something that was big to her. And I was like, what's funny is like, before you start really getting into really deepening your knowledge in any subject, you just think, oh, I know biomechanics, check. It's like, no. I know more, right? For example, if you get around someone that's a doctorate, they have a doctorate in biomechanics. They're like, I've learned so much in the last 3 years about biomechanics. Every time I talk to these biomechanists, right, I get to talk all the time with, they're always saying the same thing. It's like, man, even too, I mean, for example, talking about how much you can learn and even have perspective about your own craft is, Cody used to tell me this all the time, is like, he would know I'd be doing a Zoom, or I'd be doing, a Google Meet, right, with one of our biomechanists or one of our friends. And so I would record the conversation. And then he would go in there and he's like, man, I just thought I was going to pull all these things, all these nuggets from the biomechanist. He's like, meanwhile, the biomechanist is on the call going, oh, Joey, that's so interesting that you explained it that way. I've never thought of it that way. And I've never all like things. And it's like, right. And so we get to have these conversations. And also too, a lot of that also comes from not just that I've learned so much from them too, but also so many other biomechanists and so many other people from different fields and what their things are. And so there's never like some end point where it's like, I've arrived, or I've learned so much, or I've done all these things. It's like, I just know more, right? All right. I'm just less wrong. Randy Sullivan in Florida Baseball Armory, he always says, I just try to be less wrong than I was yesterday. Right.
Yeah.
And so, you're constantly walking down that path of just learning more and having more perspective and widening your view. And again, of course, isn't always linear. Sometimes you have to go lateral, and maybe you went the wrong direction and you go, oh, that's why we can't do it. Because I've done plenty of that,
Yes.
right? If you want to get experience in something, anybody that has deep experience, they have a pile and a stack of setbacks and failures and, you know, and again, you know, opportunities to learn, right? From a lot of that and perspective. And I think that that's so important too, is that anybody that's been through those things, it's right. It's like you've navigated many storms. And so, you know, I think with that as well is like, I remember when we actually sat down and we were talking, right? It's so funny because also sometimes the things that's holding us back the most is maybe the advice we don't want to hear, right?
Yeah.
Or what we don't want to do, or the thing I know I need to do, but some reason I'm psychologically, I'm trying to come up with some reason, right? To avoid facing what I actually need to face. And I remember when we were sitting there, and I started talking to you, you started, you know, giving me more context to what was going on and where you were at and what you were doing and what decisions you were trying to make. And, you know, I started telling you, and you're like, and you can tell you're like, no, just tell me to do these other things. And I'm like, no.
I want something else.
Yeah.
I want the other thing.
Yeah. I want to do other stuff. And I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, like, you know, I know that this isn't the answer necessarily you want to hear, but at the same time, sometimes, right, you know, the way is the way, right? And sometimes the walk is the walk. The journey is the journey. And as much as I try to avoid these things and I try to mitigate, you know, all these stuff, at the end of the day, you know, you're always taking risk. You're always putting yourself out there. You know, it could not work out. And me and I think it was me and Don, or, you know, again, one of the conversations that I had recently was we were talking about the idea that sometimes, you know, I walk through a door and I get to the next door and it's closed and it's not open. But the thing is sometimes somebody's rejection, right, or something not working out, or a setback or fail, sometimes that's just God's redirection to send us down a route. And you know what I originally came through this other door for, this is not available, and this isn't going to work this way. And sometimes it's just redirection to go a whole nother route. And if that rejection wouldn't have happened, man, all these other things wouldn't have happened. And I can't say that. There's so many times in my journey that that's been true. And and I know that was some of the conversations there. And I kind of wanted to ask you too, from this side, right, as well as, you know, again, you're someone that obviously that has prioritized learning more and growing and all these things, but also too, there's a insecurity about being, a lot of people have an insecurity about being maybe in rooms or in environments where they feel like they don't know, or, you know, like, you know, with that, right? Like, how do you handle some of that, right? In the sense of, you know, again, like just learning, right? Because I think one of the biggest things that holds people back from learning is, one, the awareness, that not only awareness, but ego-wise, of just accepting like, hey, I just don't know this. And before I can learn, I have to be humble enough to recognize where I could learn, where I have opportunities for growth. But also too, you know, they might have an insecurity about not knowing, right? And with that. So how do you view that? And how do you kind of like, you know, wrestle with that idea?
I think it's a good point. That I think for me is I care about my athletes. I genuinely care about my athletes.
Yeah.
So my vision and my thought first is not about me. It's about me helping people, like period. And so that gets me out of my own way and out of my own insecurities, because I know I have a bigger calling for people. And I know how serious this is. Just by giving a verbal cue could change somebody's life for the worse or for the best, right? I know that these things are very touchy and that coaches are playing with fire, period. Period. Whether it's 7 or a 27-year-old, it doesn't matter. So my thought first is athlete first. So that's where I come into these rooms and I think about my athletes and not me, right? And so I know if I'm better, they get better, right? So that's how I disregard that, in the sense of my emotions and my ego and all that stuff, because I just genuinely care about my athletes and getting them better, right, for their future. No,
I think that's a great point. It's like when your foundation is set and you have there's so many things that when you're aligned foundationally, that there's so many byproducts of that you know, clear the way. Because like you said, right, it's when you're, you know, even in business, right? I think the other day, it was just such a great reminder for me when I was listening to, actually in the background on one of these videos is probably playing right here, is you know, a good friend of mine, and over the years I've learned you know, so much from him. But Monty Lee, you know, he was with Clemson for a while. He's with South Carolina. He just recently took over as the head coach there as interim. And he came in one of his first press conferences, he talked about the reminder. He's like, man, you know, my job is to be a servant leader, right? Like, I'm here to be a servant leader. I'm here to serve my players. I'm here to help people. And I think the same exact thing is like, even in business, man, like when you align yourself, like there's so much knowledge biblically and all those things, you know, my faith, I'm going to dive down this way, but I've learned so much from having that heart. Is like when you're trying to help people and you're trying to solve some of their problems and all these other, you know, these areas and help them along their journey, man, it clears so many things. That gives you direction on, you know, what projects you're spending your time on, where your focus is. And also too, man, it becomes a fuel source. And I, you know, again, me and you started to talk about this before we got going, right? Where you were talking about, man, I was in this place, and I agree with you so much. I've actually, a large part of my time in the last couple of years, I've been consistently in therapy every single week. And a large part of that is not so much because there's all these massive things in my life where, you know, like my dad passed away 11 years ago. It's not like he passed away like a year ago, and all of a sudden now I'm going to therapy, and it's just not.
Right.
And again, those are great reasons to go, all those things, right? But also too, a large part of what I go therapy for is to be preventative, right? And also so many things and opportunities and how I experience my life consistently. And one of the things, I'm bringing this up because you walked into the web in the very beginning when we were talking off, is you grow up in this environment, right, of competing in this competition, you know, where you're constantly, the only way for me to win is they have to lose, right? And so we get wired this way, right? For me to win this game, I have to have more runs than that team, right? I have to get more hits. I have to, you know, we gotta produce more, right, than those other guys. And so it creates this worldview when you're there all the time and in competition. The only way I play is if I'm better than that guy. So I'm playing and he's sitting, right? And so you get this environment, and then you get into, as you continue to grow, and we have businesses and all these things, sometimes those things can actually take over. And it's so interesting, one, what you were talking through too as well. And I also too, I really want you to open this part up, because this was something that you were getting into, and I was like, hold on. I think people. So go ahead and kind of open up some of the things that you've been kind of thinking through and processing.
Well, I think switching your mindset here is important, right? And I was going to say this: creation, you're more on the offensive side. Competition, you're more on the defensive side. So you're always defending and deflecting things, right? As opposed to in a creation mode. So like I was reading this book and it was talking about, you know, obviously just growing, right, in general. But a lot of people grow in the wrong manner of the navigation of trying to compete, as opposed to trying to create, if that makes sense. And for me, I know I'm a creator. And so like, again, like, you know, you're always going to have battles. And I always think my biggest competition is myself, period. And so if I can fix myself to create, as opposed to compete with the other products, to compete with the other trainers or whatever it is, right? I am going to get lost in that. And I'm always going to be in defense mode instead of an offensive mode, right? We are trying to win the game, not defend the game, right? And so, and there's a lot of defensive coaches out there in general, like just even like in the game itself, like we're just trying not to lose. No, we're trying to win. And so like we have to create to win, right? We have to create the signs, or we have to create the playbook, right, to win the games, as opposed to always defending ourselves or defending the game, or being in that competition mode right now. Like you were saying, I think this is where a lot of people get stuck, right? And they dig themselves into a bigger rut because they're so consumed about everybody else, maybe. And that's, again, like, I don't know what anybody else is doing, to be honest with you, right? I have my certain peeps, and I think of them as my mentors, even if they don't know me, right? Because I know that I have to be creative in the cage with players. Like I have to, it might have been a crazy cue and it works. Hey, there we go. right? A cue I've been using a lot. I heard this week. It's an old school cue, but it was like kiss the ball. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I love that. And there's guys like yanking up and all this. I was like, just kiss the ball. And what they do, they stay down, like, you know, just little things like that. But if I'm always worried about everybody else and worried about all what they're doing, then it just consumes me. And then I drive in an impulsive way, right? As opposed to just sitting back and creating. And like we talked about at your facility was, you know, God might not be calling you to be big, Wes. God might not be calling you through that door. He might be calling you just to be small or just to be this. And it's like, you have to be okay with that, right? And you have to know your anchor. And so pointed that view out to me, man, where that was really important for me because that's where I was mentally. I was trying to compete. I was trying to compete. And I was like, I need to be bigger. I need to do this. I need to do that. And it was overwhelming. And you kind of just like, hey, man, like, what if that's not what God's calling you to do? Right. And I was like, and I started thinking, I was like, man, I was trying to force it, right? Because I was trying to compete. I was trying to compete and I was trying to, but in reality, I was trying to defend. You know what I mean? And be like, hey, I'm better than you. Yeah. And it's like, no,
defending the ego.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where I had to switch my mind. And so that conversation with you, and then I read it in the book and I was like, oh my gosh, those are clicking now. And like, I see what he's saying, you know? So I've been in the motion of creating, not competing. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the big place too, as well, as it's a nasty, believe me, I think a lot of business owners have built their business on fire and maybe some toxic motivations at some point, for sure. But also you got to remember with toxic motivations, right? Like I've been telling myself this all the time, right? It's like, you know, this ain't a sprint, man.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses come and go and people be big and small and disappear and all that. Like I've been in it long enough, right? Where just with that, how I've seen the ebbs and flows. I've had people that have pretty big businesses and everybody knows who they are. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, it's like, hey, what happened to blah, 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 blah? What happened to this business? What happened to Blockbuster? What happened to, you know, whoever, right? And at the end of the day, there's so much that it's not even, not only is it a marathon, but it's like, it's how I think about it right now too. It's like, you know, you're building a life, not just building a career, right? You're not just building a business, you're also building your life there, right? Where it's like, man, there's so many people that would be so much happier if they just worked for somebody, or they'd be so much happier if they had a smaller business and they weren't constantly trying to chase after bigger, you know, everybody thinks they're going to get the bigger facility with more employees and all the things. And man, my life's going to get so much better. And it's like, you know, someone, oh man, I gotta go grab this poem that I heard recently on social media, but it was like basically this idea behind. I want to say it was. I'm gonna give my version of it, of what I kind of remembered in the message I pulled from it. But basically they came, and let's say it's just let's call it, you know, this farmer. Someone comes on to this guy's farm and they see what he's doing, and he only works like half the day, and then he spends time. He really prioritizes spending time with his family and his friends, and he's, you know, relaxing. He likes to go on trips and all these things. And this guy comes in, and he's like from the Western culture, like ours, right? And he comes in and he's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, look at your margins. Look how much money you're making. Look at all the other things. And it's like, you know, if you really went and added some employees and you added some other things and we scaled this thing up, you know, you could do all these, you could make way more money. And he's like, okay, well, and then what would I do once I made more money? He's like, well, then once you start making more money, you could scale more things. You could keep flipping this X, Y, and Z. And then you could have more employees, and you could have some cars, you could have a bigger house, you could do all these other things. And then he's like, okay, and then what? And he's like, he keeps walking down the path. And then at some point he goes, yeah. And then when you get to this point, you can finally relax, spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, and also travel like you're doing X, Y, and Z, right? And I think one of those things, don't get me wrong, there's somebody right now that's like, oh, that's like the opposite. I remember being in this place of just like the biggest, like, oh, that's like some losing mentality. It's like, no. Yeah. That's the thing. You got to be careful of what game you're trying to win.
Yes.
You know? You got to be very careful, because whatever you compete at and whatever you're walking down that road of, it's like, you know, again, I even think about that, right? It's like in the same way, recently, I'm sure a lot of people, and especially if you're in the business world, you know about Hermosi, or you know about Hermosi is a CEO of some bigger companies, acquisition.com. He's also out here in Vegas, X, Y, and Z. He's helped a lot of business owners do his thing, but he has a bigger social media following. And then you also have just recently, he did a podcast with, what's his name? Oh man, I'm blowing Tony Robbins. Okay. So he did a podcast with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins was really talking to him about, and again, I've listened to some things of Tony Robbins. I have a couple of his books, but also too, more than anything, like I kind of just randomly ran into this podcast of them talking to each other, and they were talking about kind of like the art of fulfillment, right? And how different that is in Western culture, right? We're just bigger, more money, the yacht, the more cars, the bigger business, all those things, right? And I think, that's so much different than, the art of fulfillment, right? And also fulfillment for you and fulfillment for me are very different things. But when we go into a competition mindset of who's got the bigger yacht, we're setting the same test, right? The same equivalence, right? Of like, this is what's going to make you happy. This is what's going to make, us as well. And I think so much more along with that, literally, as you're saying, is that when I've operated from more of a place of one, I've already won. Yeah. Right? That's step one. I've already won. I'm far more along. When I was 10 years old, if I would have told myself, this is what you'd be doing with your life, and this, I've already crushed it. You get what I'm saying? So that's step one, right? If I went back to 10-year-old you and say, bro, you got your own business, you know what I'm saying? You got these, you got all these, like, right? You're just like, oh man, that's so interesting, that perspective. Second, on top of that, right? I don't deserve anything, right? I'm not entitled to live in America. I'm not entitled. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, businesses like mine didn't exist. You get what I'm saying? So what I get to do every day is I live in a great time and a unique opportunity and all those other things I've already won, right? So instead of trying to prove myself or trying to win something, it's like, well, I've already won, so that's already checked. It's like we're good. Now, how I get to build now and how I view some of those things is I get to build and I get to do some of these things. What motivates you then, right? If it's not doing this and it's not doing that and it's not building a bigger life, and this is where I asked you, I said, I'm like Wes, what if God had that as big as your business is today is what it would always be, right? Yeah. Would you be okay with that, right? What if your business was going to get smaller? And it's like, ooh, right? Like all these insecurities start hitting. I don't know. I couldn't accept that. I can't do those things. And it's like, because the problem is you think joy, grace, mercy, you all these, this peace, you think all of it is around the corner. And once I get, then I'll have, right? Now I feel like I'm giving up on those things, but it's like, no, the joy, the love, the peace, the mercy, the grace, all that is available today. There's no more grace and love and joy, and there's no more of it tomorrow. It's all here today, right? It's here. Right. It's available for you right now, right? In this moment, what you currently have, where you're currently blessed, what you already, all those things, right? And so I think that's also the piece, too, as well as being like, man, first off, again, I'm already blessed. I'm already blessed beyond measure just from that alone. But also then it gives me the opportunity that everything I do every day is out of a response of my win, a response of what's already happened. Not so now this is my day is now based off of, as you would mention, as creating is out of worship. God, let me show you. Thank you for blessing me with all of these things. Let me show you what I could do with it. Let me show you. Let me steward it. Let me take care of it. You sent me these people. Let me take care of those people. Yes. You sent me these players. Let me pour some of you back into them. Let me be someone that just, again, stewards your gifts and stewards your blessings and all those other things. Right. And instead of me feeling entitled to everything you've given me, like, oh man, it's just not enough. Oh man, God, if you just give me more, right. It's like, okay. Right. And so I think that's a very different mindset and shift, right? Where it gives you a lot more freedom to be a creator and being just a steward rather than that it's all on you. That, again, if you just had more, the lie of I just had more, everything would be better. Right. Yeah.
So like joy, I heard this from our head coach this past week, and he was like mentioning joy and happiness. Happiness is results based. Joy is the process of doing it, right? And I think that as baseball guys and athletes in general, or coaches or whoever it is, you know, we're happy when we win the game, right? But when we lose the game, we're not happy. Like,
Yeah.
when we go 0 for 4, we're not happy. You know what I mean? It's like, and instead of being so happy and just being results based, like let's have joy with this, right? And here's the thing that I make a point in the dojo is I love when guys fail because they're learning moments. Because guess what, Johnny? You're gonna fail in the game. Guess what, Johnny? You're gonna have a miss. But because of that miss, we now learn something if we allow ourselves to, and now I can help you learn to how to correct that miss, right?
Yeah.
And so like, and the thing is, like, in us, like, and you mentioned this, like, the ball is not always the result that we want, like, especially when we're working on things. And that's what I have to be very communicative to our parents, is like, hey, sometimes the ball is not what we're looking at. You know what I mean? Like, there's, and like you said, like, we change the swing, we change our deception, we change the timing. It's like, there's a lot of things that go into this that people don't understand. I love when people fail within reason, right? Within reason. But also on top of that, we're kind of going on vision and purpose as males, like, and as anybody really, vision and purpose will always change. It always will maneuver, right? Like, my vision 2 years ago is not the same as it is today.
For sure.
Right. It just really not. And so, like, but the thing is, you also have to have a vision for what that is that you want. Right. And as coaches, I challenge them too, is like, what is your vision for your team? Is it the way they act? Right? Is it the way they execute? Is it the way they run on and off the field? Like, what is the vision that you have for your team? And the thing is, we can get so lost because if we don't have vision, we don't have purpose. Right? It's like, what are we doing? And then also on top of that success thing, I read this the other day. Success is really about you completing something. And knowing the way that you want to complete that. And the thing is, a lot of us are just kind of a boat at sea with no propeller going anywhere. We're just kind of floating around, have no compass, nothing. So, like, for me, like, you have to have a vision, right, of what you really want. And the thing is, this started because of my vision. Yeah. I didn't know how it was going to happen. And it's funny because I want to post on social at some point. Before I got this facility, I was in this facility 5 months before it was even open. And I was in here with a player, and this was another academy that was in here before. And I went upstairs and I recorded a video myself because I felt something. I was like, I'm going to take over this facility and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z with this facility. And that was it. And God's going to give it to me. What do you know? 5-6 months later, like, hey, the lease is up for that building. And I'm like, whoa, dude, what is going on? And ever since, man, we've been just trucking along. But like I said, and that vision also comes with creation too. It's like they both go hand in hand to me, right? But if I was just sitting here and be like, I want to compete with these guys, it's like, I don't know if it would have prevailed like it has today, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think also the other piece, and one of the things that I wanted you to kind of open up to as well, is obviously, like, again, you have this idea before you come to the retreat, right, of what it might be like, all those other things. I know a lot of people might feel that way too as well, right? They might think, one of the things I was bringing this part up, right? There's a lot of coaches that are like, man, I love that idea of that. Sounds awesome, right? That looks like it would be really cool. Maybe, but it's just like, it's not like, I'm not there yet, or maybe that's for those people, or for them, or, all those other things too as well. What would you say too as well? Like, again, some people that might be stuck there, that they always feel like some of those things are just like, maybe not me. But I really like that that's available. And I see other people doing that. And Wes, that's amazing. That sounds like, it was, for you were there. It all lined up and all these other things, but also too, what would you say to some people that are kind of stuck in that place where they always feel like everything's kind of, for the other people, or maybe where there will be one day, or et cetera? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, it kind of brought me up to this Bruce Lee. this Bruce Lee quote. So in this book I was reading, they were talking about people wanted to train with Bruce Lee, right? And we all know Bruce Lee. And he did this test, and I can't remember what the test was, but this was his quote. He said, "I can't give you my knowledge because you see there's too much of yours. If you're prepared to let go of yours and give room for mine, we can work together. But as long as you hold on to yours, I can't give you this." And we deal with that as in the sense of athletes. We deal with that in the sense of parents. We deal with that in the sense of coaches, in the sense of spectators and GAs, whoever it is, right? And that's something that holds good to me because I just don't know it all, right? Yeah. And for people that are like, oh, that's not me or that's not this, it's like, what? You're really just shutting a door that could actually be something that's worth the while, right? And to me, like, I'm the first to tell you, I don't know all of it, right? And we don't. And the thing is, I've learned even just things this week, right? Because I'm open to it because there's just no black and white in this game, guys, right? And and that's what's challenging is, and especially in hitting. Pitching, I feel like is a lot different because it's a lot of the similar motions all the time, right? And hitting, it's like, and like when you look at hitters, context is very important. Like you look at a Juan Soto swing, it's like, well, what was the situation? What was the count? What was his approach? What was the pitch? Where was the pitch at? It's like there's so much to go involved with that, right? And the guy how they're adjusting and stuff like that. And so like we have to take that small piece, but it's like these little knowledges, even from somebody saying and me closing a door on somebody, I don't feel like would be very responsible for me, especially as a trainer that's dealing with young adults and children and pro athletes, because I'm here to help them, right? And that little thing that I thought that I didn't know could actually help, right? And also I was going to say too, in a book I was reading, it was like, if you can't explain it, you don't know it. But, right, like that, I can't explain the whole thing, but I can explain it enough to know and to give it to the person, right? Like I know it, but I can't say the correct terms of this muscle and this thing and that thing, right? But I can explain it because I do know it enough to explain, right?
Yeah. And again, like there's layers, right, of all the things, right? It's like, I can know that something works, not necessarily know all the reasons why, because even too, when you think, oh yeah, this is why this works. And then I've gone a little bit deeper and I'm like, oh, there's actually even more reasons why this would be good. And also now that I know that helps me understand who to give it to. And then also now that I know that, then I also know that there's these other things and then in this context and that, you add layers and layers and layers and layers of context. Right. And so,
well, I was going to say too, you had mentioned one time as well about a barber, about being a good barber. And I tell that to Dylan all the time. I'm like, dude, being a good barber, you know how to talk to the person, you know how to talk, and you know how to cut the thin and the thick hair. You know how to cut the fade. You know how to cut this line. You know how to deal with him balding. You know how to deal with it. Like, and I'm like, that's who I want to be. I'm going to be, I'm here to help. And if we see the worst kid, guess what? I don't care because I'm here to help you, bro. Like, that's why you're here.
It's funny you brought up the barber because earlier when you were talking about that too, it's like sometimes like the ball result isn't what you want it to be. And you're like, hey, no, we're working towards something good. You know that most barbers, when they're giving you a haircut, when you're in the middle of the haircut, they spin you around so you can't look in the mirror.
Right.
Why? Because nobody wants to see themselves in the middle of a haircut. Right? Nobody wants to. Nobody wants.
I didn't put that one together.
They do that on purpose. They get taught that. Again, it's like tricks of the trade. If you notice that midway through your haircut, they spin you around and you face into the middle, right? Where you're sitting with a barber. They don't want you to see a mirror. They show you a mirror at the end. They want to show you how you look after it's done, right?
That's great.
A lot of times, sometimes we're in the middle of the haircut and we don't realize like, hey, I don't want your hair to look this way, but it's part of getting your hair to look how we would like it to look, right? It's on the journey. We can't get to the end of the haircut without getting to the middle of the haircut, right?
Yeah.
Like, I need both. And so that one's super useful too, as well as like just for us to have that perspective is like, hey, sometimes even in video, I do the same thing as a coach. Sometimes I don't show them video. at certain points, because I know they're going to get distracted by all these other things, right? Yep. And then there's other times where I'm like, hey, and then also sometimes I'm pointing out very specific things like, hey, you see here, we're working on this specifically. Don't worry about your lower half, or don't worry about this right now. We're working on this one little thing. You see how this looks? And he's like, oh, dude, that's so much better, or whatever, right? And so we're getting these pieces, and it becomes such a big thing, right? And anyways, I think not only with that, but also the other thing that I was going to bring up too as well is one of the things with, also within the retreat too as well is I think a lot of people think it's just like X's and O's, like, hey, like I'm going to ask you like this, for example, is yes, you can learn all these things about the biomechanics and all these things, but also too, I think holistically, there's also when you go and experience things like this, and I have as well, not just our events, but other events, right? Like when you've come and you've actually explored and you've gone to these certain environments and you get in these unique places at, unique periods in time, it not only just changes, yes, when this happens, I may have these other tools and these other things that I can do with them. And those are big by themselves for sure, right? But also too, sometimes it just starts to change your lens of how you view it, period.
Exactly.
Right? And so I wanted to ask you, and that's what I was going to wanted to ask you. What was your biggest takeaway, from the event, when you look at it from that way of like what it gave you from that side? What do you think that would be?
It gave me that I need to be more precise. I need to be more precise. And the thing is, what it showed me holistically was that this takes a lot more time than people think.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, period, dude. Like, this takes, and this is a messy road.
Yeah.
And it takes more time, more reps, more this and that intentionally than people realize.
Yeah.
And when and I know it's like a very global thing, right? And we talk about local and global, but because like one day I asked you, I was like, what happens because of this guy dragging his bat? He's like, and you're like, well, it depends. You're like, I don't know. I don't, like there's a lot of things that go into it, but it's like, I've been in the more sector of like working with specific things. If I see a kid once a week, right, for an hour, I'm not going to do everything.
Correct.
I have to do one thing.
Yeah.
And then move on to the thing next week, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to accomplish something, not everything, right? So that's where I had to start like navigating through people and be like, dude, I'm kind of doing this wishy-washy for no reason.
Yeah.
What am I doing that for? He needs to be working on this. Like he needs to be doing this first, right? Like, so I think it just brought me in and this is how I changed my training. Like after going to you guys, I was like, whoa, like checked up myself. I was like, dude, I need to be like getting definitely more detailed into this stuff because it matters. And their little foot, how their foot is, right? Like just a little thing with the tripod and the foot, like those things. He comes in, he's pushing out of his backside. Yeah, because his foot is turned in. Yeah, my coach told me that a year ago. Yeah, don't do that. I mean, you know what I mean? You're stuck in IR. That's why you're pushing out, right? Because your body wants to be safe.
Yeah.
Right. It wants to be safe before performance. So a lot of guys are surviving instead of performing. And that's something that was very heavy into me that I'm like, holy cow, right? And like you said about losses and experience with people. And the thing about me is that I feel like quite a bit of experience with athletes. And that's kind of my biggest thing is that I have had, but with that being said, I have had a lot of losses. Right. Yeah. And so again, you guys, it let me take a step back and be like, dude, I need to reinvent what I'm doing, like literally, because at the end of the day, I need guys to perform, not survive. Right. And so it just changed the landscape of how I do things in here. And it showed me how serious this is. You know what I mean? And that a lot of coaches are just playing with fire and firing bullets at people with verbal cues and mental cues and all these things without even like looking at something. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, and even too, that's one of the things too as well. It's like, I always tell people, it's like, I had no intention of learning a quarter of what I've learned. What happened, what happened is I wasn't like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and do all the, I'm going to learn all these things and then I'll be able to do this. It's like, no. I wanted to get my players massive results. Like, I wanted to get them massive results. So to do that, I kept learning. Oh, why can't he do this? Why can't he do that? And I kept stacking things. And then this one actually blew Dawn's mind yesterday after we got off. We were talking and I was telling her how I built the curriculum. I said, again, I went to school for a long time. I went to school so long, I should probably have my doctorate degree with how many schools and how many times I transferred, all the things. I got so many classes and credits. Oh, it's goodness gracious. And so in any case, I told her, I was like, I went to school and I thought about how you create a curriculum, right? A curriculum is like, for example, if I was going to teach you to be a master coach, right? A master hitting coach. Well, what things would you need to know that would be super helpful? And then that's how I started putting together the curriculum, right? Oh yeah, you need to know anatomy. You do need to know biomechanics. You do need to go know psychology. You do need to know skill acquisition. You do need to know, okay. And then once you understand this base of, and then like we talk about when you guys first come in, I'm like, hey, this isn't psychology 100. These are, these are some major things that would really help you. And yeah, some of these things are higher level understandings, but at the same time too as well, these are some big perspectives. If I could give you advice based on what I know now, this is what I would tell you from this. Yes, you can go take a biomechanics class in college. They're not teaching you hitting and how it specifically, this is what it looks. And also this is what elite hitters do. And then it's also on top of that as well. This is how you get them to do these things once you know that they're not, or how they're having all these issues, or again, is this a symptom? All of that stuff, right? So it's like, how do I when I was reading through all this stuff and I'm going through textbooks, I read more textbooks outside of college than I ever did inside of college, right? And I'm still learning all these other things and all these nuances and all this stuff. There's so many things that I've learned now, so many books that I've read now that colleges probably won't be teaching for, 10 plus years, on and also just because you have some of that, again, making it actually applicable is a whole nother thing. But then once you have all the sciences, part 2 of our curriculum, which again, that's what I was telling you guys after, the retreats, just the first section. The second section is, okay, how do we take all that? How do we turn this into a philosophy? How does this get into how we believe with the spacing and direction and force transmission? And also too, how do we design now drills based on what we know about skill acquisition and apply it directly over the hitting? And this is how we go about it, which is also why we do some of the shadowing in the afternoons too, as well. So you can kind of see it live in play. But then at the end, we also go, okay, and this is also how we design approaches around how they're moving and what they're capable of doing. And that's also individualized too. But I also mean that too as well. Wes, I really think you'll love this piece is I know that there's a lot of people, again, this community that's like stuck in this place of, okay, you know what? The curriculum feels like a little high for me, right? Like I'm just, I'm getting started, or you know what? I was going down this whole route and this seems like a little bit overwhelming. So what we ended up doing, and I think you'll love this piece, is what we're coming out with. I've flashed it a little bit on social media, but we're coming out with a foundations course. And our foundations course is like, hey, let me create some structure. You see in the social media, right? You bought some of our tools. You see some of those things, right? And guys like you and some of the other guys that have come to retreats, they've been able to translate some of that into, okay, this is how they go around with their hitters. But also at the same time, there might still be a little bit gap or disconnect in, okay, how do I roll this out? How do I structure this, right? And in the curriculum, we go really deep in all the sciences. In the second part, we get really deep into that side. This is almost like a prequel to the second part of our curriculum, or our curriculum period. And it's not, this one's not heavy science. This one's not heavy philosophy. This one's not biomechanics and all these things. This is, hey, knowing what I know, right? And if I was giving you specifically advice based on where you're at and where you, like, again, if you're on a field, if you're a private instructor, if you're working underneath some of these constraints and you want to take some of these ideas, and then also what drills would I recommend that you do compared to what I do, because I can cue them. I know what's all going on with the body. I know all these other things, but there's certain drills and there's a structure based on how we would generally go about doing things that if I gave it to you, you would still get some pretty drastic results. Yeah. Like you would still have some pretty drastic results. So we wanted to lay a foundation of 4 pillars and kind of breaking through those. And basically what those are, right? We go into detail about, what we would focus on first. Like, think about it. Like, you went to an emergency room in the middle of the night and you got a knife in your leg, you can't breathe, right? Your heart stopped. It's like, okay, they got to prioritize. What do we go after first, right?
Yeah.
So they got, again, they're all trained on how they get circulation and making sure the guy's breathing and all these things that are super important. And so before I go after the knife, maybe the knife in the leg, even though it seems like, oh, I could just pull the knife out of it. Is that the first thing that I focus on, right?
Yes.
And when a younger athlete comes in, as you know, right? Not even a younger athlete, an athlete, period. They come in. There's all these things that I could work on. There's all these things that they maybe could be better at. What do I prioritize first, right? And then how do I structure my practice? Let's say I'm a college coach. Let's say I'm inside of a cage and I only have 2 cages. How do I get some of that in my environment? Joey, I understand what you do and I've seen what you do, but like, how do I apply that to what I'm doing? It's like, well, we wanted to close that gap, which is why we created this foundations course. And then also we have a resource in there with a document with that's like, basically I've gone through all these different practice settings and all these things that you can do and how you could implement it. And all, like, I've closed a lot of that gap with this one. So I'm excited about this other course, but I'll say the same thing too, as well, is that there's a lot of coaches that have seen some of those things where they've seen some of these random drills on social media and they took, bits and pieces. But as you know, especially coming to the curriculum, it was never meant to be bits and pieces and, oh yeah, just do this drill and everything will be great. It's like, no, there's a lot more going underneath the hood, right? So that's why we created this thing, and I think would be pretty exciting, like I said, for that community. But anyways, enough about some of the projects we're working on. But I want just to wrap it up with this too. If guys in your area and also too people want to just get a hold of you, maybe they want to reach out for advice or again where they connected with something that you really opened up here. What's the best way for them to do that?
Facebook, Instagram, and then our website is the same. So it's the Baseball Softball Dojo.com. Instagram and Facebook is the same. Literally just the Baseball Softball Dojo. That's where you can find us. We're on the west side of Wichita. And again, like, this is what we do full time, right? Like, we feel we're very privileged to be able to do that, right, in our lives. And I know it's challenging for most people, but this is something that we are engulfed in and that we do full time. Like, we take this very seriously. And it's just 2 of us at the moment. And, I think we have a good thing going.
Yeah, no, love it. Sometimes the most intimate settings, that's why even with the changes that we made, I made it so I can go really deep with the select few rather than having, I've had facilities where we've had hundreds of people a week, right? Comparatively, right? And a big thing is, like, impact wise, I felt like God was calling me, again, with where we were at in our business too, is to be able to pour into some people. And that's why, again, some people think, you can go train at one of the largest facilities in the world. It doesn't mean they might not even know your name. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think that's a big piece too, as well as and like you said, when you need that level of individualization, and also too, someone that cares about you as a person, which I think is a big, important piece as a coach. I think that's, it, again, could be something that changes your life. It could be, doesn't matter, if it's a place down the street or, across the United States, there is people out there, and sometimes God has a fit for you that's just amazing from that way. But no, Wes, I appreciate you jumping on with me. I appreciate you being vulnerable and open up some things and us having some of those conversations. And again, if you're ever in Vegas again, baby, you could always stop by.
Yeah, hey, the first place I'm going, dude. I'm heading out, bro. I'm telling you. I might just surprise you guys one day.
Love it, bro.
I know.
Well,
I hope everybody's doing good, man. This has been a blessing for me. Like I said, this has been a journey that I've envisioned for myself for 5-6 years now, man. And to even just have full circle, just even having a conversation with you is magical for me, man. Seriously.
No, I appreciate that, man. Nothing but love for you. Hope and pray for you for the best and any things. But I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure the peoples, and again, everything grows forward. I appreciate you helping grow the game forward.
Absolutely, I appreciate you, man. Thanks.